Not too long ago, the trailer for the upcoming hunter, the queen bee, Melly Plinius, finally dropped. I actually had a feeling her promo video would come out sometime this week, and hey, it didn't disappoint. Now, this video does reveal a few things, though for some Melly experts out there, it might not be anything too new. Still, there are probably people who haven't seen or fully understood the story behind the video yet, and that's what I want to talk about today. Quick little disclaimer before we start. I've tried my best to piece together Melly's story both before and after this promo came out, but of course, my interpretation might differ from yours. So if you've got extra context or a different take, feel free to drop it in the comments. Alright then, let's dive into the story.
A larva goes through several transformations. In this process, they learn to feel warmth with their extremities.
That's how new species are, Melly. Always fascinating.
Observe dreams with their compound eyes. Break free from constraints with their wings.
You don't belong here, Melly.
Pierce through lies. With their stingers.
The trailer starts off with a building that looks like a greenhouse. Now, this might actually be a greenhouse, but it also seems to symbolize a cage, the place where Melly's trapped, longing to get out. It's a pretty strong metaphor that's going to make more sense as the promotional video goes on. Next, we see a man sitting at his desk, writing something. In front of him, the walls covered with insect specimens, except for one empty frame. Keep that in mind because it'll be important later. That man is Joshua Plinius, a biologist. Joshua's a well-known biologist who studies and breeds extremely dangerous, aggressive species of bees. To organize them, he uses these super complicated scientific labels, the kind of thing only someone familiar with entomology would understand. This detail actually connects to how he eventually meets Melly, which we'll get into later. Then, we cut back to the greenhouse where Melly's inside, surrounded by a swarm of bees. I'm not sure if we should take this scene literally or symbolically. Literally, it could mean she's actually trapped in there with the bees. But metaphorically, it might represent how Melly's trapped in her role as Joshua's assistant, and as a Plinius, unable to break free, something the promotional video later hints at more directly. Next, we get a flashback. There's a young woman holding a basket of figs, meeting a man with a horse and a notebook. The man is Joshua, and the woman is Melly and Joshua. According to her design notes and first letter, Melly was born into a poor family in a small village. Through the affection system, we also learned that her family's been beekeepers for generations. The background shown in the trailer, wide open grasslands, matches the description of her village in the affection system. It's never directly stated where her village is, but her surname, Ndlovu, suggests it could be somewhere in Africa. The Ashes of Memory trailer even shows Cape Town, which supports this idea. However, during that same event, Alice mentions Melly might be of Eastern European descent, so the game never confirms her origins outright. From the affection system, we also learned that Joshua was specifically looking for a literate beekeeper Not just anyone who worked with bees. That's because he needed someone who could read those complex scientific labels he used. Melly happened to be one of the few villagers who could read, and that's how she caught his attention. The next scene shows Melly and Joshua studying insects together in the greenhouse. It shows that Melly's naturally talented and able to meet Joshua's expectations, something that's also mentioned in her affection entries. She quickly learned how to tell the different bees apart, which made Joshua really happy. It wasn't long before she became his assistant. Later on, Joshua even hired her a teacher and brought her to study at the same institution where he worked as a visiting professor. For Melly, who once thought she'd spend her whole life in a small village, this was a huge turning point. Based on her once costume series, it seems like she didn't regret this change either. Maybe she even grew to love the academic world more than her old life as a beekeeper. Now, this next part is more of my own interpretation, so take it with a grain of salt. From her third letter, we know that by the time Melly and Joshua went to an academic institution somewhere in the Mediterranean, they were already married. So they went to the Mediterranean both as husband and wife, and also as scholar and assistant. That means they must have gotten married before heading there. The question, however, is why did they marry? Was it purely because of love? To answer this, I came across a post from a Melly enthusiast and expert on Twitter who, based on their analysis, said that Melly did love Joshua. But whether Joshua married Melly purely out of love or for any other reasons, that's still unclear. Regarding that, here's my theory. Joshua married Melly partly out of affection, but also partly out of practicality. He saw her talent and intelligence, and maybe even feared she could become a rival someday. If Melly ever left him and published research under her own name, Melly and Joshua, it could threaten his reputation. By marrying her and making her a Plinius, Joshua not only kept the woman he admired close, but also ensured that any academic achievements would carry his name. In other words, it was a mix of love and self-preservation. Also, there's a possibility that Joshua might have promised Melly with equality, that they would be renowned scholars under the name Plinius, that Melly, in essence, belonged to the scholars group. Now, the problem is, Melly didn't just want to assist him, she wanted to match him, to stand beside him as an equal. This idea lines up with what's said in her Deduction quests, where Joshua becomes frustrated with Melly. Anyway, back to the trailer. There's a moment where a sample of bee covered the screen, as well as Melly's face. Symbolically, this could mean that Joshua only saw Melly as part of his insect collection, something that could bring him fame, just like the insects he studied. It reinforces the idea that, to Joshua, Melly wasn't a partner or an equal. She was another specimen, another way to raise his name higher in the academic world. And this is what Joshua eventually became. Thanks to Melly's hard work, his name grew even more famous. But, of course, that fame didn't sit well with Melly. After all, she was the one doing most of the work, yet she wasn't getting the recognition she deserved. In the next scene, we see Melly reaching her hand toward the podium where Joshua is standing. It's a clear visual metaphor. She wants to stand beside him as an equal, especially since she's the one contributing so much to his success. You could even argue that Melly might have written the research paper Joshua was presenting in that scene, though that part isn't confirmed. Later, there's a scene of Melly following Joshua while carrying stacks of research papers. She watches a group of people talking, and one of them looks suspiciously like Orpheus. Now, why would Orpheus be there? Well, according to Melly's fourth letter, Orpheus once visited a chemist involved in experimental extractions on the Delphi. That chemist was actually one of Joshua's old college friends, none other than Sam Bourbon. The two were pretty close, and this particular scene takes place in an aristocrat's house in Paphos, somewhere in the Mediterranean. As the trailer continues, we keep seeing Melly following Joshua, through scenes filled with trophies, portraits, and cups celebrating his achievements. All these visuals emphasize Joshua's growing prestige and fame. Then we get a shot of a statue of Melly reaching her hand toward the sky while holding a stack of research papers. Around the statue, piles and piles of papers are stacked, making a tower in itself. To me, this clearly symbolizes how Melly was the one doing most of the hard work behind Joshua's success. Yet, despite everything, she remained in his shadow. After that, we see a powerful moment. Melly tries to reach out to Joshua, and he reaches back, but instead of helping her, he pushes her away. She falls into that same empty frame we saw earlier in the trailer, which now has a name written on it. Melly Plinius. That moment speaks volumes. It shows that, in Joshua's eyes, Melly was nothing more than another specimen, just part of his collection that helped build his reputation. As she falls, we see the line, "You don't belong here." If we connect that line with her deduction quest, it might actually hint at the moment when their separation agreement was made. And that, right there, was the turning point of Melly's story. The trailer then brings us back to where it all began, the greenhouse. Melly's trapped inside again, surrounded by bees. She bangs on the walls, runs around in circles, but no matter how hard she tries, she just can't get out. It's a perfect metaphor for how she's stuck, trapped in the same role as Joshua's assistant, with no way forward. Unless she changes. That's where the idea of metamorphosis comes in. We see Melly curled up inside what looks like a beehive, her face gloomy and tired. Then, another shot shows her again, this time with the shadow of a bee behind her. It's such a haunting image, but it carries a powerful message. Melly needs to transform. She needs to change who she is, her mindset, her role, her identity to truly break free. In my view, Melly's core desire is actually very simple. She just wants to be loved and acknowledged. But in the end, she loses both. Maybe Joshua did love her at first, but once she started seeking recognition for her own intelligence and effort, that love faded. Now all that's left is a woman trapped in Joshua's greenhouse, surrounded by the bees she once cared for, with nowhere else to go. That's why the trailer later shows her running desperately in circles, trying to break free. It's tragic, but it perfectly captures her struggle. She gave everything, only to end up caged by the very world she helped create. Anyway, back to the concept of metamorphosis. If you've seen her affection system, Melly mentions metamorphosis several times. Connecting that to her story, it represents her transformation. From a powerless assistant with no escape, to someone determined to take control of her own life. She no longer wants to be someone's assistant, she wants to stand on her own. To be recognized as an equal, someone who can stand at the podium beside Joshua, not just behind him as his shadow. And so, she keeps pounding on those greenhouse walls again and again until they finally shatter. And as that happens, we see a chilling line appear, pierce through lies with their stingers. This might suggest that, in Melly's eyes, Joshua had been lying maybe about his love, about treating her as an equal, or about taking credit for her work. Then, we see her transformation in full. Melly grows wings, which could mean a symbol of freedom in themselves. The shattered glass house represents the end of her confinement. By now, she's no longer Melly Plinius the assistant. She's the queen bee. A new self, reborn and empowered. From one of her affection lines, it's implied that Melly endured immense pain to reach this point. That pain, the emotional pain, led to her rebirth. And in the end, she broke free from her cage by doing the unthinkable, secretly killing Joshua, using the venom of a rare, deadly bee species, one that Joshua himself had never documented. After Joshua's death, Melly inherited his wealth, published her own papers, and eventually became a renowned biologist herself. But she withdrew from public life, preferring to stay in the field. She always covered her face during public appearances. Some say it's because she was too beautiful and didn't want her looks to overshadow her work. Others think it's guilt, that she couldn't bear to look at herself after what she'd done. Either way, life went on until the manor owner sent her a bee sample. And that bee was the exact same species that killed Joshua. That means someone knew her secret, and this one person was blackmailing her. So, to cover her tracks, Melly joined the manor game, the very same event we know as Ashes of Memory. And that's my take on Melly's promotional video. Again, this is just my interpretation, so feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments, and let's have a good discussion about it. I've listed some of my sources in the video description if you want to check them out for more context. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.